In this PowerPoint presentation, we are going to analyze some of the questions in Unit 4, Paper 1, Part A and B2. So if you have not done the exercise, please do not continue to watch this PowerPoint presentation, and please do so only after you have completed the entire Paper 1 of Unit 4. So please take out your Skills Book Unit 4 and also your Reading Passages booklet. And again, make sure you have done Unit 4 Paper 1 before you continue. Let's start with Paper 1A then. Last time, I have drawn your attention to a few questions that will be related to the skills taught in Unit 4. That will be questions related to rhetorical questions and also those that require you to make inferences. We will focus on those questions today in our PowerPoint presentation. So these will be the questions if you remember. Let's start with question 1 then. Let's start with question 1 then. How was John probably feeling when puffing from the ascent, and why? So right now you may not know what puffing and also ascent mean, but then I guess actually the context will be able to help you. So let's focus on paragraph 1 and also the following paragraph. I climbed out of the floating solar panel factory, followed by my friend and colleague John, who was puffing from the ascent. Right now, let's focus on the word puffing. You may not know puffing as a verb or puff as a verb, but probably you may have heard of like a puff of air. So puffing will be similar to panting. It's like you are taking a number of breaths because probably you're like after you have done exercises or you are very tired. What about the word ascent then? You would need to, in order to understand this word, you will need to look at the next paragraph. Nothing in particular had changed in the first hour since I had climbed down the same ladder to the factory. So, the earlier the writer had climbed down to the factory. So that's why when he came out of the factory, he would need to climb up. So ascent, as some of you may recall, like you actually know another part of speech like ascending. I'm pretty sure you know you use the word ascending very often in maths. Ascending order, like an increasing order. So ascent here is like climb. So how was he feeling when puffing from the ascent? So you can probably expect like the writer just or Chong just climbed up from the ladder. Okay, so and then he was puffing. So probably we can deduce that he was feeling a little bit tired or exhausted from the climb. And these keywords will be what we need for question 1. Okay, so for the next question, question 11. What metaphor does the narrator use to describe the solar panel factory in paragraph 8? So we'll look at that part. First of all, metaphor. It would be very similar to another rhetorical device simile, except that when you use metaphor, we will not use as or like. So here, let's take a look. The solar cell factory was no longer visible, comma, which was lucky, as the steel grey monster would spoil the otherwise magnificent view enjoyed by the residents of the coast. Here, the steel grey monster, okay, is obviously the answer, and it would refer to the solar cell factory. We are trying to compare the solar cell factory with a steel grey monster. Some of you may be a little bit confused because we have got the word as here. Remember, which was lucky as this monster would spoil the view. So as here means because. It has nothing to do with like as or like in a simile. So the answer for part 1 would be steel grey monster. So it is a grey monster. It spoils the otherwise magnificent view enjoyed by the residents. So if something could spoil the magnificent view, then that something must be something that is really ugly and also unattractive. So for part 2, we can probably guess the solar cell factory is quite ugly or not attractive at all. Question 13 is kind of easy because we're asked to find the comparison used in paragraph 11 to show or to suggest how the narrator was feeling. At the end of paragraph 11, we can see the line here. I felt as relaxed as the seagull sunbathing on a ferry. So the comparison is very straightforward. So what you need to do would simply be copy the seagull sunbathing on a ferry. You can just copy this part as the answer. And then for part 2 of question 13, the comparison suggests the subject was I felt as relaxed as the seagull. So we can actually think of the picture in our mind. Seagull sunbathing on a ferry. When you are sunbathing, so probably you feel very relaxed. So A, calm, would obviously be the answer for 13 part 2. For question 14, what is the price the pirate was referring to? In order to answer this question, we would need to look at the conversation between the narrator and also the two pirates. Here, the first pirate asked the narrator to put a thing on his shoulder, that is the solar cell, into the sack. And then the second pirate asked the first pirate to stop. The first pirate actually was a little bit confused because he did not know why, and he thought the second pirate would want to have the price for himself. So here, the price, the only reference that we can get from these 4 paragraphs or this conversation would be the thing on the narrator's shoulder. That is also the solar cell. So the answer should be the solar cell on the narrator's back or shoulder. So this is kind of direct and also obvious. Why didn't the pirates take it? If we continue to read the next few paragraphs, we would find the answer here. The thing's got a tracker on it. So I guess you all know what a tracker is for. Here the answer from the publisher is simply they were afraid they would be tracked down as the solar cell was fitted with a tracker. If I were you, probably I would add in more detail. So who would be using a tracker? Maybe, probably you can suggest they could be tracked down by the police after they stole the solar cell from the narrator. So there will be a consequence of being tracked. So question 17, we will need to find out the cause of the electrocuted fish in paragraph 19. Here, let's take a look. So the narrator referred to his home as a slum, and then underwater there were a lot of like pipes and also cables. And near the cable, it was the hotspot for collecting electrocuted fish. Electrocuted would be obviously related to electricity. And then the cable, thanks to the abysmal insulation work. Insulation, probably we know the meaning. It would be like about the protective layer of the cable, and then it is abysmal. We can make a guess. It is probably the insulation is sort of damaged or the cables were poorly insulated, and that's why a lot of fish were killed because of the leaked electricity. So overall, we are really making an inference here based on some of the keywords. So the answer would be the the electricity leaks from poorly insulated cables caused the fish to be electrocuted. Question 18, we will need to explain why the narrator felt faint. We can look at paragraph 21 to 23. Probably when you need to answer this question, you will need to understand the context in greater detail. Here in paragraph 21, the narrator was trying to connect the solar cell into the powering system, and then we know electricity was very expensive at that time. So he climbed to the rooftop, his heart pounding, and then he said, he had all the power and the answer to all my problems on my shoulder. And on his shoulder, it was actually the solar cell. So this is sort of like a comparison. The writer thought or regarded the solar cell as a key to solving all his problems, in particular the power problems. So when he connected it to the powering system, nothing happened. I felt faint. So the narrator felt faint because nothing happened. So you will need to explain further, like he was kind of worried. The solar panel, the solar cell was not going to work, so he felt very hopeless. So let's move on to discuss some questions in part B2. Last time we asked you to pay special attention to the following questions. So 39, 47, 48, 49, 52, 53, 56, and also 60. We will discuss these in great detail. For question 47, we need to describe Rapley's tone and also explain the choice of his tone. So we need to look at these paragraphs in greater detail. Here, Rapley is suggesting that our influence on the Earth is at a very huge and tremendous level and also scale. He also suggests that we are like playing with fire, a potentially reckless mode of behavior which we are going to regret unless we get a grip on the situation. So I would say near the end of this paragraph, we can have more clues about the tone. So we can take a look at the answer. Here we can describe his tone as critical because he used the word reckless to describe our behavior that causes huge influence on the earth. So he disapproves of humans' reckless behavior that have influence on the earth system. At the same time, you may also say he was using a cautionary or alarming tone because of the phrase playing with fire. So he was sort of warning us we have to change or else we would regret. So that's why you can also write your answer this way. He uses a cautionary tone because he believes humans' future will be doomed unless we change our behavior. Question 48 is actually very related to question 47. Why do you think the writer wrote Rabelais is not part of the WGA at the end of paragraph 7? So first of all, we need to know what WGA stands for. It stands for Working Group on the Anthropocene. So obviously, we can assume the committee or the working group was formed because all the professors, all the geologists there believe there is a need to declare a new geological epoch called the Anthropocene. So they have the same idea. We won't be surprised if any expert or professor from the working group put forward ideas related to um, the significance of the Anthropocene. But then here Rabelais' idea would be actually very similar to their idea, and he's not part of the group. So that's why by citing the fact that he's not part of the WGA, the proposal put forth by the WGA regarding the Anthropocene epoch can be more convincing because it is also supported by experts outside the working group as well. So next question, what does prognosis mean in line 28? So Martin Rees suggests the darkest prognosis of the next millennium is that bio, cyber, and environmental catastrophes could foreclose humanity's immense potential, leaving a depleted biosphere. So next millennium is like talking about the next hundreds of years. And then what about the bio, cyber, and environmental catastrophes? Have they actually happened? Obviously not. So Martin Rees here is suggesting something may happen over the next millennium. So the word prognosis here is like prediction or forecast. So the darkest prognosis. Here Martin Rees mentioned something about like huge catastrophe. So among the four options here, I would say doomsday would be more suitable because the Earth would become a depleted biosphere according to Martin. So this is a very pessimistic view. So that's why doomsday would be the best option to describe what is going to happen. Question 52 is very straightforward and also direct. We have to find the metaphors used in these two paragraphs. So we can take a look. For paragraph 7, we have already discussed in the previous question. So humans are like the crew, and also the Earth is the spaceship. So we have got the answer here. And then for paragraph 12, the Earth has been smoked. So it's like changed by air pollutants. So the answer for part 2 of 52 would be smoked. In question 52, we will need to explain why domestic chicken can be used to define the Anthropocene. In addition to reading paragraph 14, we will also need to understand the central ideas in paragraph 10 as well. Here it says, to define a new geological epoch, a signal must be found globally. So, in the case of the Cretaceous epoch, the signal would be the metal iridium, which was dispersed from the meteorite that collided with the Earth. So these kinds of metal could be found globally. So that's why we could define the geological epoch of the Cretaceous period. So back to the case of domestic chicken. In paragraph 14, it states that with human help, domestic chicken spread rapidly across the world, And so we can argue as time goes by, uh, because as time goes by, they will become fossils that can be found all over the world. And because their spread over the world is primarily caused by human, so together they can help prove or define the period of Anthropocene. Question 56. What is the significance of the coast of Santa Barbara and also the cave in northern Italy? So these are the sites where annual layers are formed, and the scientists are investigating the mud sediments. Similar to the previous question, we also need to understand more about how we can define a geological epoch. That is, we find signals that occurs globally, um, like in sediment. So the importance or the significance of the coast and also the cave is that they are the sites where annual layers of sediments are formed. So probably by investigating the mud sediments there, the scientists can find proof of the Anthropocene. Question 60. With reference to paragraph 13, what evidence of the Anthropocene discussed in paragraph 17 to 21 cannot provide a useful golden spike for the Anthropocene, and why? We will need to read these paragraphs carefully. In paragraph 17, it's about the extinction of animals and plants that is being caused by human activity as the evidence of the Anthropocene. However, in paragraph 13, it's argued that such an extinction is unlikely to provide a useful golden spike because these animals that have become extinct are very rare by definition, and they are rarely dispersed worldwide. And so that's why for what we can say mass extinction of animals and plant species. As for the reason, we can say because the animals are rarely dispersed worldwide. I hope I have discussed most of the difficult questions in part A and B2 and have shown you how you can use the inferencing skills to infer implicit meaning from the text. So can you please check the rest of the questions yourself using the marking scheme that I sent you. Thank you.